Hey, eighth grade, how are you doing, guys? We are going to be talking about the French and Indian War today. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of a review. You guys have been working on some stuff that kind of give you information about that, and then we're going to talk about the legacy of the war, and frankly, how this French and Indian War, this 7 years war, which fun fact actually lasted nine, uh, is going to be one of the major causes for the American Revolution. So we're kind of in a transitional type of lesson here. So we're kind of using this, and I want you to keep this in mind. This is all of the things you're seeing here are going to create an environment and have an effect, which is going to lead Americans to want independence from the British, okay? So that's really what we're going to be focusing on today and for the rest of the week and whatnot this week. So all right, let's take a look at this then a little bit more in depth, shall we? So French and Indian War, and I hope you like my little fireworks that I'm sharing with you guys. For some reason, the screen share was acting a little glitchy. Sorry about that. But anyway, French and Indian War is going to be going on, otherwise known as the 7 Years' War, and we're going to talk about some of that today. When we look at the French and Indian War, it's going to all kind of begin in 1753, and it's really going to be centered here in North America. We are, for lack of a better way of putting it, we are the ones that are going to instigate. The American colonies are going to be where this starts, and people are going to see us as the people that started this war, not on purpose. It's just kind of, if you remember, we talked about this, a lot of competition between Britain and France for the fur trade. And in 1753, the governor sends a young colonel. His name's George Washington. Maybe you've heard of him. He's going to go out into the Ohio Valley, and his job is to push the French out so that the French can, or so that the British can come in, settle the area, farm it, as well as obviously get their hooks in on the fur trade. So what he finds out, though, when Washington shows up, he's not given a lot of men. He's given a militia. I think he has about 75 guys or so. And he goes out there and he sees that the French were already building a massive fort. It's called Fort Duquesne. And it's kind of like, the rebels finding the Death Star. They're like, whoa, they're already here and it's fully functional. So what happens is Washington comes back as a lieutenant. Like I said, he's got a militia. He increases his force to 150 men, and he begins to build a fort near what we would call present-day Pittsburgh, what was called Fort Duquesne back then. He's going to call it Fort Necessity because he sees it as a necessary build to defend the British colonies from the French, because people are freaking out. They did not expect to see the French have this kind of development out here. Normally, the French didn't do that. And so when the British find out about the French building a lot of forts, it's going to kick off kind of this arms race of who has the bigger army and what's going on there. This is the area that's in dispute right out here. Let me try and highlight that for you. So what I want you to pick up on, though, is this area. Here, what you've got is this area right out here kind of being the start of everything. And, here's like, you probably just give an idea. Here's where we lived. There's Cahokia at the time. And then this is all taking place right out here. This was Britain. I guess I shouldn't have chose yellow. But that is really going to be the area of what's going on. This is what the area looks like. British have this up here. They're trying to expand it. Their goal is to eventually connect the fur trade up here with the fur trade over here, using the Great Lakes and kind of going, okay, we can ship stuff out through New York. That's the plan. But as you can see, the British and the French are fighting up here. I shouldn't say fighting. I should say arguing over what's going on in here and up here. And so that's really what's going on at the time. Washington and his soldiers end up building Fort Necessity, and the French, not wanting to put up with that, attack the force, and Washington's forced to surrender. It is a humiliating defeat. But this attack is seen as the beginning of the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War. And Washington loses bad, but a lot of people love Washington. It's kind of like, well, he wasn't out there with professional British soldiers. He was out there with militia guys. He's out there with tobacco farmers. How is he going to fight the professional French army. So a lot of people look at Washington as this hero. This is his first taste of fame. This is where people first start to hear about George Washington. And so they're like, the British didn't really give him much, and he tried to stand up to the French, and, yeah, he lost, but, dadgummit, he's all right. It's kind of like how people feel about the Cubs, hey, they might not win. Sorry if you're a Cub fan. I like to give them grief. So, anyway, so what happens is the British come out and they send one of their best generals. His name's Edward Braddock. 1755, he comes in. He's bringing the British soldiers. He's coming in. He's going to retake Fort Duquesne. And what he does, because Washington has this humiliating defeat, is he gets a hold of Washington. He says, hey, man, you and I like you. You're a good kid. Let's go and, show these French, teach these French a lesson. And, you were famous for standing up to them and losing, but now we're going to get you to win. You could probably get a promotion out of this. It's going to be awesome. And Washington's like, oh, this is great. Now, keep in mind, Washington's a young man. He's, a colonel, lieutenant colonel or whatnot. He comes in and he's going to show Braddock. This is like, seeing one of his heroes come down. He's one of the most popular generals in the British Army. And he's like, look, I'll show you exactly what I did. The problem is Washington shows Braddock exactly what he did, and the French were waiting. So Braddock's army gets ambushed. Washington takes him on the exact same route. Braddock, it's such a bad situation. Braddock actually gets killed. The army is almost knocked out. Like half the army gets killed, and Washington's leading the survivors back to Virginia again in defeat. Now, it's important for you to remember this moment. This moment, Washington is branded by the British military as, yeah, he's got a lot of heart and he's got a lot of effort, but he's just not that good of a leader. And so the British will never promote Washington after this. He's got two massively visible, two massively horrible defeats. And as far as the British are concerned, you've lost a couple times, you're done. They like, hey, you're done. That's going to come back to kind of bite the British in the behind, if you know where I'm going with that. So when Washington comes back, people are appalled that the British have lost. Britain then creates an alliance. They get a hold of Prussia, what you and I call Germany today, and they're going to fight France and its allies. And it's on. The 7 Years' War is on. This world war is going to be on. Now, within a couple years, the fighting is taking place in Europe. It's in France. It's in Europe. It's in Africa. It's in Asia. It's in North America. And as sometimes things happen, elections take place in Britain, and there's a new prime minister. A new majority party takes over. And the guy that's in charge is this guy, William Pitt. And I want you to remember his name because he's kind of a major, major player in what we're looking at here. So Mr. Pitt is going to hook it up. And, this guy is going to be massively important for the British cause. Because what he's going to do is he's going to change the whole strategy that the British military has been doing. They've been playing defense. It's like, okay, British attack over here, British attack over here. We'll defend. Pitt says, no, we're going on offense. And to avoid arguing about money, Pitt said that Great Britain, I want you to pick up on this, is going to pay for all the supplies. They called it a blank check. All right. Britain's going to cover everything. Don't worry about the cost right now. We're playing to win. We will worry about the cost later. How do you think this is going to get paid later? It's a good question. I want you to think about that. So with the British now going on the offense, you can kind of see what you have in red is where the British decide to go on the attack. And so what happens is, here's where the French were winning. Now the British are going to send in, notice where they're going. They're using where they can go their navy. They're going to go into the disputed territories. There's Louisbourg. We talked about how they were able to take it. They take it back again. Here's Quebec. Here's Montreal. And notice now they're not waiting for the French to come to them, but they're going on the offensive. They're going to go and take the fight to them. Pitt's plan was to conquer French Canada, which I kind of just showed you. And so the British forced the French to abandon Fort Duquesne. Because Pitt is so popular, they rename it Fort Pitt. We call it Pittsburgh. So they go in, and he gets two of his best generals, Jeffrey Amherst, James Wolfe, to go in, and they retake the unconquerable fortress of Louisbourg again. And this time, they're not going to give it back to the French. They are going to use it as a launching point for attacks on Montreal and other places, and Quebec in Canada. James Wolfe leads an attack to take Quebec, which was the capital of New France. If you've ever played the board game Risk, you know how the story goes. It's based on the European rules of war, which means if you capture the capital, the idea is you surrender and you get all that territory and stuff, okay? So Wolfe's army goes and he launches a surprise attack. He takes the city. The Marquis de Montcalm, he is the French general. He goes in, he gets killed in the battle. Once the French lose their leader in Quebec, they surrender the city and Quebec falls. The French don't give up the entire territory, but later Jeff Amherst leads an army to go in and take the city of Montreal. And by 1761, the fighting is basically over in North America. But remember, just because the fighting's done here doesn't mean the fighting is done everywhere. All right. So remember, the fight goes on until 1763. So 7 years war, 9 years, because the fighting is still taking place in Europe, fighting is still taking place in Asia, Africa, places like that. So again, just to kind of review, here comes Amherst, here comes Wolfe and Saunders. They take Quebec, they take Montreal, they've got to Canada. And as far as the British and the French are concerned, this is all now going to become British territory. Okay, big win for the British. Treaty of Paris comes up a couple years later. This is going to mark the end of France as a colonial power in North America. Remember historical significance. First time something happens, the last time something happens. So here's the end of an era. The French are going to give up other territories. They've lost, Montreal. They've lost Quebec. They lose St. Louis. They're going to lose New Orleans. All of that is going to be transferred over to Britain's allies. Britain does to keep some of its islands in the Caribbean, but Canada and pretty much all of its lands east of the Mississippi go to Great Britain. Spain had come in. Spain is going to be given Florida. They're going to give Florida to Britain as tribute for their alliance with France. And then Britain, I believe, is going to give everything west of the Mississippi to Spain so they can kind of connect their other territories. Spain just is kind of like a, hey, I give you something, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Spain gets the lands west of the Mississippi. Remember, I'm saying west, that's St. Louis and everything in New Orleans. They get everything west of the Mississippi, and the British get everything east of the Mississippi, okay? So again, this is going to be a massive pickup. So here's what the map looks like now. Here's what Britain picked up. This was the old colonies. Remember, they had Hudson Bay Colony. Now the British have all this. Now they gave this to Spain because Spain gave them Florida. All right, just kind of a quick rundown. And this is what your map is going to look like after the 7 Years' War. But remember, it's the 7 Years' War, and it really lasts 9 years. Wars are not cheap, and they're going to have to pay for them, okay? The result of the war basically ends French influence in America. That is a massive deal. They won't come back for a while. You'll see a guy named Napoleon try to put them back literally on the map. But England is going to have massive amounts of land. The war, though, has other massive effects. First of all, the relationship between Native Americans and the English are going to hurt. Remember, we talked about the Iroquois Confederacy. The British take them off the map. They're saying, oh, we took over this whole territory. The Iroquois Confederacy, remember, was massive. And now they're not recognizing the Iroquois Confederacy as a separate nation. Now they're saying that the Iroquois Confederacy is part of the British Empire. Okay, that's going to hurt relationships. The war seems to also strengthen England's hold on the colonies. The effects of the French and Indian War in 1763, 1761, 1762, 1763, when the fighting was over in North America, people loved being British. They were, they thought they had the best king, they had the best government, they had the best economy. They thought it was awesome. But the problem is after 1763, and 1763 is going to be a big year that I want you to remember, the effects of this are going to play a major role in how the relationship between England and the colonies are going to, kind of get worse. Because remember, for a couple of years, Britain's going to have to fight France over in Africa, Asia, Europe. They're not going to pay attention to the colonies again. So the colonies think, hey, we've won. It's 1761. We're winning. We beat the French in Canada. And then when we win the war, everybody is excited after a big win. And so you've kind of got this, big win feel. Everybody's feeling good. But then, unfortunately, all things, come to an end. And we're going to talk about the things that Britain is doing, and it's really related to the French and Indian War, particularly how they have to pay for that war. That's going to hurt the relationship between England and its colonists. Remember, they've already upset the Indians. All right, they stopped recognizing the Iroquois Confederacy as a separate country. That hurts the relationship with the Native Americans, and now the colonists, who are euphoric over this victory, are going to see their relationship also get hurt with the British. Again, it's going to come down. And again, that's my big question. What do you think they're having you do that's going to hurt the relationship? We'll talk more about it in the future. All right, see you at the Zoom, guys. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. All right, later, guys. Bye.